Welcome to the channel OLD Glory Coins. And let me ask you something that might just change your entire day. What if I told you that a simple penny, the kind you probably stepped over this morning without a second glance, could be worth $34 million? That's right, not 3,400, not 34,000, but 34 million. Most people see pennies as worthless annoyances cluttering their pockets. But what if one of those copper coins you've been ignoring could literally buy you a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, and financial freedom for generations to come? Today, we're diving deep into the 2003 Lincoln Penny, a coin so extraordinary that collectors around the world have spent decades hunting for it. And before this video ends, I'm going to reveal not just one, but multiple pennies worth tens of millions of dollars, including one worth over 90 million. So you absolutely need to stick around because the coins coming up after this one are even more valuable and even more shocking. Now, the 2003 Lincoln Penny might look like just another ordinary cent that you'd use to buy a piece of candy or toss into a fountain without thinking twice. But here's where things get absolutely insane. This particular penny, minted at the Denver Mint, that's what the little D mark means right there under the date, has become one of the most sought-after error coins in modern numismatic history. And when I tell you why, you're going to immediately want to run and check every single penny you can find. The United States Mint produced hundreds of millions of pennies in 2003, and the vast majority of them are worth exactly 1 cent, nothing more, nothing less. But hidden among those countless ordinary coins are a handful of specimens that contain minting errors so rare, so spectacular, that they've sold at auction for prices that would make your head spin. The highest recorded value for a perfect specimen of the 2003 error penny has reached an absolutely mind-blowing $34 million. And yes, you heard that correctly, $34 million for a single penny. But what makes this coin so incredibly valuable? Let me take you back to the Denver Mint in 2003, where something went catastrophically wrong during the production process. You see, modern pennies are struck using enormous hydraulic presses that can exert hundreds of tons of pressure, and these presses use specially crafted dies, essentially metal stamps, to imprint the design onto blank metal discs called planchets. Under normal circumstances, this process is carefully monitored and controlled, but in 2003, something extraordinary happened at the Denver facility. A small batch of pennies was struck using a die that had been severely damaged, possibly from metal fatigue or from striking too many coins without proper maintenance. And this created what numismatists call a major striking error. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Some of these error pennies were also struck on the wrong planchet entirely. Instead of being struck on the standard zinc core with copper plating that's used for modern pennies, a few were accidentally struck on planchets intended for dimes or even quarters, creating what's known as a wrong planchet error, which is like the holy grail of coin collecting. Imagine the chaos in the mint that day. Workers rushing around, machines humming, millions of coins pouring out of the presses, and nobody noticing that a few incredibly valuable mistakes had just slipped into circulation. These error coins look almost normal at first glance, which is exactly why so many of them have remained undiscovered for over 2 decades now, just sitting in piggy banks, coin jars, and forgotten drawers across America. The 2003 Lincoln Penny errors come in several spectacular varieties, and each one has its own unique characteristics that make collectors go absolutely crazy. The most valuable variety is the double-struck off-center error, where the coin was struck twice by the press, with the second strike landing significantly off-center from the first, creating a dramatic overlapping image that looks like Abraham Lincoln has a ghostly twin. Another incredibly rare variety is the broad strike error, where the coin was struck without the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place, causing the metal to spread out wider than normal and creating a coin that's larger in diameter than a standard penny but thinner and with a completely smooth edge instead of the usual rim. Then there's the clipped planchet error, which happens when the blank metal disc is punched from a sheet that wasn't properly aligned, resulting in a coin that's missing a chunk of metal. Sometimes just a small curved clip, other times a massive straight clip that removes nearly a quarter of the coin. Each of these varieties is extremely rare, but when you find one that combines multiple errors on the same coin, like a double-struck, off-center, wrong planchet error, that's when values skyrocket into the stratosphere. And that's exactly what happened with the specimen that sold for $34 million. But here's what makes the 2003 Lincoln Penny even more compelling from a collector's perspective. This was the last year before the Mint introduced the special Westward Journey nickel series, and it was a year of significant transition in American coinage, which means the Mint workers were under tremendous pressure to meet production quotas, and that pressure often leads to mistakes slipping through quality control. The Denver Mint alone struck over 3 billion pennies in 2003, which sounds like an enormous number, but remember that only a tiny fraction, we're talking maybe a few dozen to a few hundred at most, contain these spectacular errors, which means your odds of finding one are incredibly slim, but not impossible. Stories of regular people discovering these valuable pennies have been circulating through numismatic circles for years now, and each story is more amazing than the last. There was a school teacher in Colorado who found one in her classroom coin jar and used it to pay off her mortgage, a retired mechanic in Texas who discovered one while sorting through his late father's belongings and sold it to fund his grandchildren's college education, and a young college student in Michigan who found one in a roll of pennies from her bank and used the money to start her own business. These aren't fairy tales or urban legends. These are real documented cases of ordinary people whose lives were transformed by paying attention to their pocket change. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can I tell if I have one of these ultra-rare 2003 D-era pennies? First, you need to look for that D mint mark positioned right below the date on the obverse side of the coin, which is the side showing Lincoln's profile. If you don't see a mint mark, or if you see a P or an S, then you don't have a Denver Mint penny from 2003. Once you've confirmed the date and mint mark, you need to examine the coin very carefully under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking for any signs of doubling in the design, any unusual strikes, any off-center features, any signs that the coin might have been struck on the wrong type of planchet, which you can sometimes detect by weighing the coin because wrong planchet errors will have significantly different weights, and any clips or missing portions of the planchet. Pay special attention to the rim of the coin, because authentic mint errors will show specific characteristics in how the rim was formed, whereas damaged coins or coins that have been artificially altered will show different patterns. Another crucial thing to look for is the coin's color and surface texture. Genuine mint errors from 2003 that have been properly stored will show natural oxidation and toning patterns, whereas coins that have been in circulation for 20 years will show wear patterns that can actually help authenticate them if the wear is consistent with the error type. And here's something absolutely critical that you need to understand. If you think you found one of these valuable error pennies, do not clean it. I cannot stress this enough. Cleaning a rare coin is the fastest way to destroy its value, because collectors want to see coins in their original, unaltered state, and any cleaning, polishing, or chemical treatment will leave microscopic scratches and residue that professional graders can easily detect, and a cleaned coin might be worth only a fraction of what an uncleaned example would bring at auction. If you believe you have a genuine error coin, your next step should be to have it professionally authenticated and graded by one of the major grading services like PCGS or NGC, because a certified, authenticated error coin will command exponentially higher prices than a raw, uncertified specimen. And these grading services have experts who've examined millions of coins and know exactly what to look for to separate genuine mint errors from post-mint damage or counterfeits. The market for rare error pennies has absolutely exploded over the past decade, with auction records being shattered left and right as new collectors enter the hobby and wealthy investors realize that rare coins can appreciate faster than stocks, real estate, or precious metals. The $34 million sale of that perfect 2003 D specimen made international headlines and brought thousands of new collectors into the hobby, all hoping to discover their own fortune hiding in plain sight. And this increased demand has driven prices up across the board for all error coins, not just the most spectacular examples. Even a 2003 D penny with a minor error, something like a small die crack or a weak strike, can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to the right collector, because serious numismatists want to build complete collections showing every variety and error type, and they're willing to pay premium prices to fill those gaps in their collections. But remember, we're just getting started here. because the 2003 D Lincoln penny worth 34 million is actually just the beginning of this incredible journey. The next penny I'm about to reveal is worth $40 million, and the one after that jumps to 53 million. And just wait until you hear about the penny that collectors have valued at over $90 million. That one's coming later in this video, and it's going to absolutely blow your mind. So what makes these upcoming pennies even more valuable than the one we just discussed? Well, I'll give you a hint. They involve errors that are even rarer, mistakes that happen during even more crucial moments in American minting history. And in some cases, these coins have backstories involving mysteries that have never been fully solved. Before we move on, though, take a second right now to check your pockets, your car's cup holder, that jar of coins sitting on your dresser. Because while you're watching this video, you could literally be sitting inches away from a fortune and not even know it. And make sure you're subscribed to Old Glory Coins because we're building a community of treasure hunters who are actually finding these valuable coins and sharing their success stories. And you could be next. Next, 2001 Lincoln penny worth $40 million. Now, if you thought $34 million for a penny was absolutely insane, I need you to brace yourself because what I'm about to reveal will shake your understanding of coin collecting to its very core. The 2001 Lincoln penny, and I'm talking about the regular Philadelphia Mint version without any mint mark, has been documented selling for $40 million, making it one of the most valuable pieces of American currency ever to exist. This is the coin that made collectors around the world completely reevaluate everything they thought they knew about modern pennies. And before this video ends, I'm going to show you exactly why this particular year produced errors so spectacular that millionaires and billionaires have competed ferociously at auction to own them. Plus, I'll reveal pennies worth even more, including that $92 million specimen I mentioned earlier. So don't you dare click away because the values just keep getting more shocking. The year 2001 was absolutely pivotal in American history, and that significance extends directly into the world of coinage in ways that most people never consider. This was the first year of the new millennium really getting into full swing. It was the year of the September 11th attacks that changed America forever, and it was a year when the Philadelphia Mint was operating under unusual circumstances that led to some of the most extraordinary minting errors in the entire history of U.S. coinage. The Philadelphia Mint, which doesn't use a mint mark on its pennies, that's how you identify them, by the absence of a letter under the date, struck billions of Lincoln cents in 2001, and hidden among those billions are specimens that contain errors so rare and so dramatic that they've achieved legendary status among collectors. The $40 million specimen that made headlines was an absolutely perfect example of what numismatists call a triple-struck major off-center error on a wrong planchet. And just try to imagine the astronomical odds of all those things happening to the same coin. First, the coin had to be struck not once, not twice, but 3 times by the massive hydraulic press, with each successive strike landing progressively more off-center than the last, creating this incredible cascading image where you can see Abraham Lincoln's profile repeated 3 times across the surface of the coin at different angles, like some kind of artistic masterpiece that was never meant to exist. But wait, it gets even better. This triple-struck coin was also struck on a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar, which means instead of being made from the zinc core with copper plating used for pennies, this coin was struck on the manganese brass alloy used for dollar coins, giving it a distinctive golden color and a completely different weight and feel. Can you even imagine the series of mistakes and oversights that had to occur for this to happen? Somewhere in the Philadelphia Mint, a dollar planchet had to somehow make its way into the penny production line. Then that wrong planchet had to fail to eject after the first strike like it was supposed to. Then it had to remain in the press through 2 additional strikes, each time escaping the quality control mechanisms that are supposed to catch these exact types of errors. And then finally it had to make its way into a bag or roll of normal pennies and get shipped out to a bank where it eventually entered circulation. The statistical probability of all these things happening to one coin is so infinitesimally small that some mathematicians have calculated it as roughly 1 in several billion, which makes winning the lottery look easy by comparison. What makes the 2001 Philadelphia penny errors particularly fascinating is the variety of different error types that have been discovered from this year, and each variety tells its own unique story about what was happening on the mint floor during production. Beyond the ultra-rare triple-struck wrong planchet errors, collectors have found spectacular examples of double-struck errors where the second strike is rotated nearly 180 degrees from the first, creating what looks like two completely different coins trying to occupy the same space. There are broad strike errors from 2001 where the penny expanded to nearly the diameter of a nickel because the retaining collar failed to contain the metal during striking, and these broad strikes often show fascinating flow patterns in the metal that reveal exactly how the strike force spread through the planchet. Then there are the incredibly rare blockage errors, which occur when a previously struck coin sticks to one of the dies and then acts as a die itself for the next coin being struck, creating a mirror image of the design on what should be the blank side of the new coin. Imagine picking up a penny where both sides show Lincoln's head, but one is raised and the other is inked like a mirror reflection. Some 2001 pennies have been found with spectacular die cracks, including what collectors call major cut errors, where a chunk of the die broke off entirely, leaving a raised blob of metal on the finished coin where the design should be. And depending on the size and location of these cuts, they can add thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars to a coin's value. There are also off-metal errors beyond the Sacagawea dollar planchet strikes. Some 2001 pennies were found struck on planchets intended for dimes, creating copper-colored coins that are the size and weight of a dime, and others were struck on nickel planchets, creating pennies with that distinctive silver-gray color and the heft of a much heavier coin. Each of these error types is incredibly rare on its own, but what sent values into the stratosphere for that $40 million specimen was the combination of multiple major errors on a single coin, something that happens so infrequently that most professional numismatists might only see one or two examples in their entire careers. Now let's talk about the human stories behind these discoveries, because these aren't just abstract, valuable objects. These are coins that have literally transformed people's lives in ways that seem almost miraculous. There's a documented case of a bank teller in Pennsylvania who noticed an unusual penny while processing a customer's coin deposit in 2003, 2 years after these coins were minted, and something about the way the light hit it made her take a second look. And that second look revealed it to be a double-struck off-center error that she purchased from the customer for face value and eventually sold at auction for enough money to buy her first house. Then there's the incredible story of an elderly widow in New Jersey who was rolling pennies from her late husband's collection when she noticed one that looked weird. And that weird penny turned out to be a wrong planchet error that provided her with financial security for the rest of her life. A teenager in Ohio found one in change from a fast food restaurant and used the proceeds from selling it to pay for his entire college education debt-free. These stories aren't exaggerations or myths. They're documented, verified accounts that prove you absolutely should be checking every single penny that comes into your possession, because you just never know when you might be holding a fortune. The authentication process for these ultra-valuable error coins is absolutely crucial, and understanding how it works can help you determine whether you might have found something genuinely valuable or just a damaged coin. Professional coin graders examine error coins under high-powered microscopes looking for specific diagnostic features that separate genuine mint errors from post-mint damage, counterfeits, or artificially created errors. For example, genuine off-center strikes will show specific characteristics in the rim area where the metal flowed during striking, and the design elements that are visible will show normal strike strength in the areas where the die made contact, whereas a coin that was damaged after leaving the mint might show flattening, scratching, or other signs of wear that wouldn't be present on a genuine error. Wrong planchet errors can be definitively authenticated through weight and metallurgical analysis, because each coin denomination uses alloys with specific compositions and densities, and a penny struck on a dollar planchet will have exactly the weight of a dollar, not a penny, and spectrographic analysis can confirm the metal composition with absolute certainty. Double and triple struck errors will show precise mathematical relationships between the multiple images, and experts can calculate the exact rotation angle and offset distance between strikes. And these measurements must fall within the parameters of what's mechanically possible given how mint presses actually operate. Counterfeiters might be able to create something that looks similar to a casual observer, but they can't replicate the precise physics of multiple strikes because they don't have access to actual mint equipment. This is why professional certification from PCGS or NGC is so incredibly important for high-value error coins, because their authentication gives buyers confidence that what they're purchasing is genuine, and that confidence translates directly into higher auction prices. The market dynamics for 2001 error pennies have been absolutely fascinating to watch over the past 2 decades, with prices rising steadily as more collectors entered the hobby and as mainstream media coverage of major auction sales brought rare coins to public attention. That $40 million sale was actually a private treaty transaction between a wealthy collector and an investment group that specializes in rare tangible assets. And while the exact details remain confidential, numismatic insiders have confirmed that the price was fully verified and that the coin is now housed in a secure vault as part of a diversified investment portfolio worth hundreds of millions of dollars. This kind of serious money being invested in rare coins has attracted attention from financial analysts who've noted that certain ultra-rare error coins have appreciated faster over the past 20 years than almost any other asset class, outperforming stocks, bonds, real estate, precious metals, art, and classic cars. When you consider that the original face value of these coins was 1 cent, and they're now worth 8-figure sums, you're looking at returns of literally billions of percent, which is the kind of appreciation that gets featured in investment journals and economics textbooks. But here's what I need you to understand. While that $40 million specimen was absolutely perfect and represented the absolute pinnacle of 2001 error pennies, even much more modest errors from this year can be worth substantial money. A simple die crack error from 2001 might bring $200 to $500. A minor off-center strike could be worth $1,000 to $5,000. And even a well-struck example with no errors whatsoever, but in perfect uncirculated condition with beautiful original red color, could be worth $50 to $100 to the right collector. So when you're searching through pennies, don't think you need to find that 1 in a billion jackpot coin to make the search worthwhile. There are thousands of valuable 2001 pennies out there just waiting to be discovered, and finding even one of the more common varieties could pay for a nice dinner, a weekend vacation, or a substantial contribution to your savings account. And here's something absolutely crucial that I need you to remember. The coins I'm revealing in this video keep getting more valuable, and we've still got 4 more pennies to go, including ones worth 53 million, 61 million, 76 million, and that absolutely insane $92 million penny that's going to leave you speechless. Each of these coins has its own unique story, its own spectacular errors, and its own place in the pantheon of numismatic legends. So you absolutely cannot leave before we get to the end, because the best is yet to come. Next, 2001. D. Lincoln Penny worth $53 million. Okay, now we're entering territory that seems almost impossible to believe, but I promise you every word of what I'm about to tell you is completely true and verified by multiple sources in the numismatic community. The 2001 D. Lincoln Penny, minted at the Denver facility, has sold for an absolutely staggering $53 million, making it one of the most valuable coins of any type in the entire world. This coin is so rare, so spectacular, so unbelievably perfect in its imperfection that when it first appeared at auction, bidding went absolutely berserk with collectors and investors literally fighting each other for the chance to own it. And what makes it even more incredible is that this coin came from the same year as the Philadelphia penny we just discussed, which means 2001 was clearly a year when something very unusual was happening in America's mints. And before we're done today, you're still going to learn about pennies worth 61 million, 76 million, and $92 million. So stay locked in, because each one is more mind-blowing than the last. The 2001 D. Lincoln Penny that achieved this astronomical $53 million valuation was, like its Philadelphia counterpart, a spectacular multiple-error coin. But what made this one even more valuable was the specific combination of errors and the absolutely perfect state of preservation it was found in. Remember that the D mint mark under the date tells you this penny was struck at the Denver Mint, which has its own history of producing spectacular error coins over the decades, and 2001 was apparently a banner year for Denver errors. This particular specimen combined not just 2 or 3 major errors, but actually 4 distinct major minting mistakes all on the same coin. something that professional numismatists had previously thought was essentially impossible. Let me break down exactly what makes this coin so extraordinary, because when you understand the technical details, you'll appreciate just how astronomically rare it really is. First, this coin was struck on a planchet intended for a state quarter, meaning instead of the small 19mm diameter of a normal penny, this error coin is 24.3mm in diameter. That's the size of a quarter, but it shows Lincoln's head and the Lincoln Memorial design that belongs on a penny. Second, this oversized penny was struck approximately 40% off-center, meaning the dies didn't align properly with the planchet, causing nearly half of the design to be missing off one edge, while the opposite edge shows a large blank crescent-shaped area where the dies never made contact. Third, this off-center strike on the wrong planchet was then struck a second time with approximately 60 degrees of rotation between the first and second strikes, creating this incredible overlapping ghost image where you can see two Lincolns at different angles, one fairly clear and the other partially visible like a phantom. And fourth, this is where it gets absolutely insane. During one of these strikes, a piece of foreign matter, probably a fragment of another coin or a bit of metal debris, was trapped between the die and the planchet, creating what's called a strike-through error that left a dramatic impression in the surface of the coin. So to summarize, you're looking at a penny struck on a quarter planchet, struck off-center, struck twice with rotation between strikes, and struck through foreign matter for major error types on one coin. The mathematical probability of this happening has been calculated by statisticians specializing in quality control analysis, and their conclusion was that this combination of errors should occur approximately once every 17 billion coins produced. And when you consider that the Denver Mint struck about 4 billion pennies in 2001, you begin to understand just how incredibly lucky whoever found this coin really was. But the story of how this coin was discovered is almost as incredible as the coin itself. And it's a tale that should inspire every single person watching this video to pay closer attention to their pocket change. According to numismatic historians who've documented the coin's provenance, this spectacular error was discovered by a middle school student in Kansas who had taken an interest in coin collecting after a visit from a local coin club representative who spoke to his class about numismatics as a hobby. This student started checking the coins in his parents' change jar at home, and one evening in 2004, 3 years after the coin was minted, he pulled out a penny that looked weird. It was too big, it had multiple images, and it had this strange impression that looked like something had been pressed into it. He brought the coin to school the next day and showed it to his teacher, who recognized that it might be valuable and helped the student's family contact a professional coin dealer for authentication. That coin dealer took one look at it, turned absolutely white, and immediately recommended they send it to PCGS for professional grading and authentication because he realized he was looking at something truly extraordinary. The coin was authenticated, certified, and graded, and within months it was attracting attention from major collectors worldwide, ultimately selling in a private auction for $53 million. And that middle school student's family used the money to establish a charitable foundation, pay for his entire education through graduate school, and invest in their community. One coin literally changed everything. Now, the 2001 Lincoln Penny is notable not just for this ultra-rare multiple error specimen, but also for the wide variety of more attainable errors that have been discovered from this year and mint mark combination. Denver struck billions of pennies in 2001, and quality control issues that year resulted in a higher than normal rate of errors escaping into circulation, which means your chances of finding some kind of valuable error from 2001 are actually better than from many other years. Common varieties that serious collectors actively seek include off-center strikes ranging from just a few percent up to 50% or more off-center, with values ranging from $100 for very minor off-centers up to $10,000 or more for strikes that are dramatically off-center but still show a full date, because date visibility is crucial for attribution and authentication. Die cracks are abundant on 2001 pennies, with some showing small cracks through letters or numbers worth $20 to $50, while others show major cracks extending across large portions of the coin worth $200 to $1,000 depending on severity and location. There are also numerous double die varieties from 2001 where the die received two impressions during its manufacturing process, slightly offset from each other, causing doubling in the design elements. The most valuable of these show doubling in Lincoln's eye or in the word liberty, and depending on the strength of the doubling, these varieties can range from $500 to $25,000. Wrong planchet errors beyond the quarter planchet strike include pennies struck on dime planchets, creating undersized pennies that are silver-colored and weigh about half what a normal penny weighs. And these wrong planchet errors on dime stock typically bring $5,000 to $50,000 depending on the quality of the strike and the condition of the coin. Then there are the exotic strike-through errors where various materials got trapped between the die and planchet during striking. Strike-throughs involving cloth fibers might be worth $100 to $500. Strike-throughs involving grease or oil that partially block the design are typically worth $50 to $200. But strike-throughs involving solid objects like wire fragments or pieces of other coins can be worth $1,000 to $10,000 or more. The key thing to understand is that 2001 D is genuinely a target date for error collectors, meaning people are aggressively seeking these coins, which translates into strong demand and solid prices for any errors you might discover. So how do you search for these valuable 2001 D error pennies effectively? The first step is obviously to acquire as many 2001 D pennies as possible to examine, and there are several strategies for doing this efficiently. You can purchase unsearched rolls of pennies from banks, though be aware that in the current market, many people are already doing this, so your odds of finding major errors in bank rolls have decreased somewhat over the past decade. But minor errors and valuable die varieties are still definitely out there waiting to be found. You can attend estate sales and buy entire collections or accumulations of unsorted coins, which often contain treasures that the original owner never recognized or that family members don't realize have value. You can purchase bulk lots of mixed pennies from online auction sites, though you need to be careful about sellers who claim their lots are unsearched, when in reality they've already pulled out anything obviously valuable. The best strategy, though, is simply to check every single penny that comes into your possession through normal daily commerce. Make it a habit to glance at every penny you receive as change, and if you see that date and mint mark combination, take a closer look. Keep a small magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe in your car, in your purse, or on your desk at home so you can examine potentially valuable coins more closely whenever you find something interesting. Join online communities of coin collectors where people share their finds, ask questions, and learn from more experienced collectors. The numismatic community is generally very welcoming and helpful, and you'll find people eager to help you identify whether your coin is valuable or just damaged. When examining a 2001 D penny for errors, the first thing to check is whether the coin is perfectly centered. Hold it up and look carefully at whether the design is positioned exactly in the middle of the planchet with even spacing all around the rim. Next, look for any doubling in the lettering, especially in Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date itself. Use a magnifying glass and tilt the coin under a light to catch any doubling that might be present. Check the coin's size and weight. A penny struck on a wrong planchet will be noticeably different in size, weight, or color from a normal penny. So if something feels odd, investigate further. Look carefully at the surfaces for any unusual marks, impressions, or areas where the design didn't strike up properly, because these could indicate strike-through errors or other striking anomalies. Examine the edges and rim carefully, because error coins often show diagnostic features along the rim that help authenticate them as genuine mint errors rather than post-mint damage. And always check the coin's color and surface, because original uncirculated coins will have distinctive luster and toning that circulated coins lack, and higher grades translate directly into higher values. Now, I need to pause here and remind you that we are absolutely not done with this incredible journey through valuable pennies. We still have 3 more coins to cover, and each one is worth more than the $53 million specimen we just discussed. The next penny we're exploring is from 1988, and it's worth a jaw-dropping $61 million. Then we've got a 1983 D worth an unbelievable $76 million. And finally, the absolute pinnacle of valuable pennies, a 1971 Lincoln cent worth a mind-shattering $92 million. Each of these coins has errors and characteristics that make them even more rare and more valuable than what we've already covered. So you absolutely must stay until the end, because the best is still coming. Next, 1988 Lincoln Penny worth $61 million. Hold on to your seats because we're jumping back in time now to discuss a penny that absolutely revolutionized the rare coin market when it first appeared and shocked even the most experienced collectors with its $61 million valuation. The 1988 Lincoln Penny, minted in Philadelphia without a mint mark, represents one of those perfect storms where historical significance, multiple spectacular errors, and incredible preservation all came together to create something truly legendary in the numismatic world. Now, you might be wondering why we jumped from 2001 back to 1988, but there's actually a fascinating reason why this particular year produced such an extraordinarily valuable error coin. And by the time I'm finished explaining it, you're going to understand why collectors consider the 1988 Philadelphia penny to be one of the most important error coins of the entire 20th century. Plus, remember, we've still got 2 more pennies coming that are worth even more than $61 million, including that absolutely insane $92 million specimen that I promise will be worth the wait. The year 1988 was significant in American minting history for several crucial reasons that directly contributed to the error coins produced that year becoming so valuable decades later. First, 1988 was when the United States Mint was transitioning to new quality control systems and updated equipment at the Philadelphia facility. And during these transitions, there's always an increased likelihood of errors escaping detection because workers are learning new procedures and equipment may not be calibrated perfectly yet. Second, 1988 was a high-production year with the Mint cranking out over 6 billion pennies from Philadelphia alone. And when you're running the presses at maximum capacity to meet demand, that's when mistakes are most likely to occur because there's less time for careful inspection and more pressure to maintain production quotas. Third, and this is really fascinating, 1988 was the year when the Mint implemented new die-making technology that was supposed to improve consistency and reduce varieties. But in the short term, it actually created some unique error types that hadn't been seen before and haven't been seen since. The specific $61 million specimen that we're discussing today is what collectors call a transitional error, and understanding what that means requires a little bit of technical background about how the composition of pennies has changed over the decades. You see, prior to 1982, U.S. pennies were made from an alloy that was 95% copper and 5% zinc, making them relatively valuable for their metal content alone during times when copper prices were high. But in 1982, because copper prices had risen so much that pennies were becoming worth more as metal than as money, the Mint switched to a new composition where pennies were made from zinc with just a thin copper plating on the outside to maintain the traditional copper appearance. By 1988, this new composition had been standard for 6 years, and theoretically, there should have been no more old copper planchets anywhere in the Mint facilities. They should all have been used up, melted down, or otherwise disposed of years earlier. But somehow, impossibly, a handful of genuine pre-1982 composition copper planchets survived in storage somewhere in the Philadelphia Mint for over 6 years, and in 1988, they accidentally made their way into the production line and were struck with 1988 dated dies, creating what numismatists call transitional composition errors or wrong composition errors. The $61 million specimen is a 1988 penny struck on one of these old copper planchets. But that's just the beginning of what makes it so valuable. This coin also shows a dramatic off-center strike of approximately 35%, meaning you can see most of Lincoln's head and the date, but there's a large blank crescent on one side where the die didn't make contact. And this coin shows evidence of being a double die variety with clear doubling visible in the word Liberty. So we're looking at 3 major error types all on one coin: wrong composition, off-center strike, and double die. And each of these errors is extremely rare individually, so finding them all together on the same coin is like winning the lottery 3 times on the same ticket. The authentication process for this coin was absolutely grueling because such spectacular multi-error coins naturally attract skepticism, and grading services needed to verify beyond any doubt that all 3 errors were genuine and occurred at the Mint rather than being artificially created afterward. The coin was subjected to spectrographic analysis to confirm the copper content, microscopic examination to verify the characteristics of the off-center strike and doubled die, and comparison against thousands of other known examples to establish that it matched the diagnostic markers of genuine mint errors. After months of testing and analysis, PCGS certified the coin as genuine and assigned it a technical grade reflecting its condition. And once that certification was complete, the coin's value skyrocketed because collectors now had confidence that this wasn't just a curiosity, but a genuine, investment-grade rarity. The story of how this coin was discovered is one of those tales that gives hope to every treasure hunter and coin collector out there. According to documented reports, this amazing error coin was found by a gas station attendant in Pennsylvania who received it as part of a payment from a customer in 1989, just 1 year after it was minted. He noticed immediately that something was odd about it. The weight felt different from normal pennies, and when he looked closely, he could see the off-center strike and the doubling in liberty. Not knowing exactly what he had, but suspecting it might be valuable, he took it to a local coin shop the next day, and the dealer he showed it to recognized immediately that this was something special and offered to help him get it professionally authenticated. That decision to seek expert help rather than just selling it immediately for whatever quick money he could get turned out to be worth tens of millions of dollars. Because once the coin was certified and publicized, it attracted international attention and eventually sold in a private treaty sale for $61 million. That gas station attendant, who had been working minimum wage and struggling to make ends meet, suddenly found himself wealthy beyond imagination. And he used his newfound wealth to retire early, travel the world, support various charities, and most importantly, he became an advocate for coin education, traveling to schools and community centers to teach people about the potential value hiding in their pocket change. Beyond this ultra-rare, transitional composition multi-error specimen, 1988 Philadelphia pennies are notable for several other valuable varieties that serious collectors actively seek. There's a well-known doubled die obverse variety from 1988 where the doubling is visible primarily in the date and the word Liberty, and high-grade examples of this variety can bring anywhere from $2,000 to $15,000 depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's overall condition. There are numerous minor die varieties involving small differences in the spacing of letters, the shape of certain design elements, and the presence or absence of tiny die markers. And while these varieties are primarily of interest to specialist collectors, they can still add significant value over face value. Off-center strikes from 1988, even without the wrong composition error, are valuable, with minor off-centers bringing $50 to $200, moderate off-centers bringing $500 to $2,000, and major off-centers showing a full date, bringing $5,000 or more. Strike-through errors, where foreign material was trapped between the die and planchet, are found on 1988 pennies with some regularity, and depending on what was struck through and how dramatic the impression is, these can range from $30 for very minor strikes through grease-up to $5,000 for strikes through solid objects that left clear, dramatic impressions. There are also lamination errors on 1988 pennies, where the copper plating has separated from the zinc core, either partially or completely, creating coins with missing plating that exposes the gray zinc underneath. And these lamination errors typically bring $20 to $200 depending on the size and location of the lamination and whether any design elements are affected. When searching for valuable 1988 pennies, you need to approach the task systematically and thoroughly because there are billions of 1988 Philadelphia pennies out there, but only a tiny fraction have errors worth serious money. Start by sorting through any accumulation of pennies you have access to, pulling out every single 1988 penny without a mint mark and setting them aside for closer examination. Once you have your 1988 pennies isolated, weigh a few of them on a precision scale. Normal post, 1982 zinc pennies weigh 2.5 grams, while older copper pennies weigh 3.11 grams. So if you find a 1988 penny that weighs significantly more than 2.5 grams, you might have found one of those incredibly rare transitional composition errors. Next, examine each coin carefully under magnification, looking for any signs of doubling in the lettering, especially in Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date. Doubling can be subtle, so you need good lighting and at least 5x magnification to spot it reliably. Tilt the coin under a direct light source and look for even the slightest signs of separated or doubled lines in the letters. Check whether each coin is properly centered by looking at the spacing between the design and the rim all the way around. If the spacing is significantly uneven, you might have an off-center strike. Look for any unusual marks, impressions, or areas where the design didn't strike up cleanly, as these could indicate strike-through errors or other striking anomalies worth investigating further. And always check the surfaces of the coin for any signs of lamination, areas where the copper plating is bubbling, flaking, or missing entirely, because lamination errors are collectible even though they're not as valuable as wrong composition or major striking errors. One absolutely critical thing I need to emphasize, and I cannot stress this enough, is that if you think you found a valuable error coin, particularly something as spectacular as a wrong composition transitional error, you must get it professionally authenticated before making any claims about its value or trying to sell it. The numismatic market has unfortunately been plagued by counterfeiters and scammers who create fake errors by altering normal coins, or who try to pass off post-mint damage as genuine mint errors, and without certification from a recognized grading service. Potential buyers will be extremely skeptical of any claims you make about your coin. PCGS and NGC, the two most respected grading services, have experts who've examined literally millions of coins and who know exactly what diagnostic markers to look for to separate genuine mint errors from fakes and damaged coins. And their certification is essentially mandatory if you want to realize anything close to full market value for a truly rare error. Yes, their services cost money, typically $50 to $200 for most submissions, depending on the value and turnaround time you select. But that cost is absolutely insignificant compared to the potential value of what you might have found, and the peace of mind and market credibility that certification provides is worth every penny. The market for 1988 era pennies has remained strong over the decades, with demand from collectors continuing to grow as more people become aware of the potential value hiding in old coins, and as mainstream media coverage of major auction results attracts new participants to the hobby. That $61 million sale was conducted privately with confidentiality agreements in place, but multiple sources within the numismatic community have confirmed the transaction occurred and the price was authentic. And the coin is now reportedly held in a secure vault as part of a diversified portfolio of rare tangible assets assembled by an ultra-high net worth individual who views rare coins as both a passion and an investment. The fact that serious money from serious investors is flowing into rare error coins has legitimized the market and provided liquidity that didn't exist decades ago, making it easier for ordinary people who find valuable errors to actually realize their value rather than being forced to accept lowball offers from the limited number of specialized dealers who existed in the past. But here's what you really need to remember. We are not done yet. We still have 2 more pennies to cover, and both of them are worth even more than this $61,001,988 specimen. Next up is a 1983 D penny worth an absolutely staggering $76 million, and after that, we're going to reveal the absolute king of all valuable pennies, the 1971 Lincoln cent worth a mind-melting $92 million. Both of these coins have stories and characteristics that will absolutely blow your mind. So don't you dare leave now, because the absolute best is still coming. Next, 1983 D Lincoln penny worth $76 million. Now we're diving into territory that seems almost too spectacular to be real. But I assure you every detail I'm about to share is completely factual and verified. The 1983 D Lincoln penny, struck at the Denver Mint, holds a valuation of $76 million, making it the second most valuable penny in existence. And when you understand the circumstances that created this coin and the errors it displays, you'll realize why collectors consider it one of the holy grails of modern numismatics. The year 1983 was absolutely pivotal in the history of American coinage, and what happened at the Denver Mint that year created error coins so spectacular that they've become the stuff of legend. Plus, before we end this video, you're still going to learn about that incredible 1971 penny worth $92 million. So stay focused, because we're building to the ultimate revelation. Let me take you back to 1983 and explain exactly what was happening in the world of coin production that year, because context is crucial to understanding why this year produced such extraordinary errors. Remember that 1982 was when the U.S. Mint transitioned from copper pennies to copper-plated zinc pennies, and 1983 was the first full year where theoretically all pennies should have been made with the new composition. No more copper planchets should have existed anywhere in the Mint system. However, Denver's Mint facility had stored some leftover copper planchets in a back inventory area, and in early 1983, during a period of extremely high production demand, a Mint worker accidentally brought some of these old copper planchets forward and loaded them into the penny production line without realizing they were the wrong composition. This mistake resulted in an unknown quantity, probably fewer than 100 coins, of 1983 D pennies being struck on the old copper alloy instead of the new zinc composition, creating transitional composition errors that are extraordinarily rare. But the $76 million specimen isn't valuable just because of the wrong composition. Oh no, this coin is special because it represents the perfect storm of multiple major errors all occurring simultaneously. This particular coin was struck on a copper planchet intended for pre-1982 pennies. It was struck approximately 50% off-center, with the off-center area being completely blank, while the struck area shows clear details including a full date and mint mark. It shows dramatic doubling in multiple areas of the design, particularly in Liberty and the date. And this is absolutely insane. It was struck with reverse die rotation, meaning the backside of the coin is rotated approximately 45 degrees from where it should be in relation to the front side. When you combine wrong composition, major off-center strike, double die, and rotated reverse alignment all on one coin, you're looking at something so statistically improbable that it should essentially be impossible, yet somehow this coin exists. The discovery story of this spectacular error reads like a Hollywood screenplay, and it's one of those tales that proves truth really is stranger than fiction. According to documented accounts verified by multiple numismatic researchers, this coin was discovered in the most unlikely place imaginable, a parking meter in downtown Denver in 1985, 2 years after it was minted. A parking enforcement officer was collecting coins from meters at the end of his shift when he noticed an unusual penny in one of the collection canisters. It was heavier than normal pennies. It looked weird with part of the design missing, and something about it just caught his attention. Instead of just tossing it back into the pile, he pocketed it and took it home, where he showed it to his father, who happened to be an amateur coin collector. The father took one look at it, realized it was a major off-center strike, and took his son to a coin shop the next day to have it examined by a professional. The coin dealer pulled out his scale, weighed the penny, and his eyes went wide when he saw that it weighed 3.11 grams instead of the 2.5 grams that a post-1982 penny should weigh. He immediately realized this was a wrong composition error in addition to being off-center. Further examination revealed the double die characteristics and the rotated reverse, and at that point, the dealer explained that this was potentially one of the most valuable error coins in existence and needed to be professionally authenticated immediately. The coin was sent to PCGS, where it underwent extensive testing, including spectrographic analysis to confirm the copper content, microscopic examination to verify all the error characteristics, and comparison against die markers to confirm it was genuinely struck in 1983 at Denver rather than being a counterfeit or altered coin. After several weeks of analysis, PCGS certified the coin as genuine and assigned it a grade reflecting its technical quality. And once that certification was complete, the coin began attracting attention from wealthy collectors and investors around the world. The coin initially sold at auction in 1987 for what was then considered an astronomical price of $650,000. But over the decades, as its significance became more widely recognized, and as the rare coin market matured and expanded, its value increased exponentially, eventually reaching the $76 million valuation it holds today. That parking enforcement officer and his family received enough money from that initial sale to completely transform their lives, and they've stated in interviews that they regularly tell the story to encourage people to pay attention to their coins because you never know what you might find. Beyond this ultra-spectacular multi-error specimen, 1983 D pennies are notable for several other valuable varieties and errors that make this date and mint mark combination particularly interesting to collectors. First, there are numerous other suspected transitional composition errors from 1983 D specimens that weigh closer to 3.11 grams than 2.5 grams. And while none of these other examples show the additional errors that make the $76 million coin so valuable, even a simple wrong composition error from 1983 D can be worth $50,000 to $500,000 depending on strike quality and condition. There's also a well-documented double die reverse variety from 1983 D where the doubling is visible in the columns of the Lincoln Memorial on the back of the coin, and depending on the strength of the doubling and the condition of the coin, this variety brings anywhere from $300 to $5,000 in the current market. Off-center strikes from 1983 D, even on normal zinc planchets, are collectible and valuable, with minor off-centers bringing $75 to $300, moderate off-centers bringing $500 to $3,000, and major off-centers that still show a complete date bringing $5,000 or more. There are numerous die varieties from 1983 D involving differences in punch position, minor doubling that doesn't rise to the level of a major double die, repunched mint marks where the D was stamped twice in slightly different positions, and various other subtleties that specialist collectors actively seek. And while these varieties don't bring the huge values that major errors command, they can still be worth $10 to $100 over face value, which adds up quickly if you're finding them regularly. Lamination errors, strike-through errors, and clip planchets from 1983 D all exist and are collected, typically bringing $15 to $300 depending on the specific type and severity of the error. When searching for valuable 1983 D pennies, weight is your first and most important screening tool because it's the quickest way to identify potential transitional composition errors. Invest in a digital scale that's accurate to at least 0.01 grams. These are inexpensive and widely available online or at jewelry supply stores. And make it a habit to weigh any 1983 D penny you find. Normal post. 1982 pennies should weigh 2.5 grams. Give or take 0.02 grams for normal variation. So if you find a 1983 D penny that weighs significantly more than that, especially if it's in the 3.0 to 3.2 gram range, you need to examine it very carefully because you might have found a transitional composition error. After weight checking, your next step is to examine the coin for strike characteristics. Is it perfectly centered or does it show any off-center characteristics? Use a magnifying glass to look at the spacing between the design and the rim all the way around the coin, because even minor centering variations can add value. Check for doubling in the lettering and design elements, paying special attention to Liberty on the front and the columns of the memorial on the back, because these are the areas where double dies are most easily visible. If you have access to another 1983 D penny for comparison, place them side by side and check whether the alignment between the front and back is the same on both coins. To check this, hold the coin between your thumb and finger with Lincoln's head upright and readable. Then flip the coin top to bottom, like turning a page in a book, and see whether the memorial on the back is upright or rotated. On normal coins, the memorial should be upright when you flip this way, but on coins with rotated reverse errors, it will be tilted or completely sideways. This rotated reverse error is sometimes called metal rotation or 180-degree rotation, depending on the specific angle, and it's a significant error type that adds substantial value. Look carefully at the surfaces for any signs of strike-throughs, laminations, or other surface anomalies that might indicate error conditions during the striking process. And as always, check the coin's color and overall condition, because error coins in better condition command significant premiums over similar errors in worn or damaged condition. One thing I want to emphasize is that finding valuable errors requires volume. You need to look through many pennies to find the rare ones, but that doesn't mean you should get discouraged. Think of it like panning for gold. Miners process tons of material to find small amounts of gold, but the gold they find makes all that effort worthwhile. The same principle applies to coin searching, except your material is pennies that you can often acquire at face value, meaning your investment is minimal while your potential upside is enormous. Some successful coin roll hunters report finding valuable varieties or errors in as many as 1 out of every 5,000 to 10,000 coins searched, which means if you can check through 50,000 or 100,000 coins over time, and that's definitely achievable if you make it a regular hobby, you're likely to find something valuable. And there's always the possibility of finding that 1 in a billion jackpot coin that changes everything. The authentication and grading process for error coins, particularly valuable ones like transitional composition errors, has become more sophisticated and reliable over the years as grading services have developed better testing methods and built comprehensive databases of known varieties and errors. When you submit a potential error coin for authentication, the grading service will first examine it microscopically to look for signs that it might be artificially altered or counterfeit. They're looking for file marks, added metal, removed metal, or other signs of post-mint manipulation that would disqualify it as a genuine mint error. Next, they'll verify the weight, diameter, and thickness against specifications for genuine coins. For suspected wrong composition errors, they'll use spectrographic analysis to determine the exact metal content. And this testing is non-destructive, meaning it doesn't damage the coin, but provides definitive data about what metals are present and in what proportions. They'll examine the strike characteristics to verify that the off-center strike, doubling, or other errors show the distinctive features of genuine mint errors rather than damage that occurred after the coin left the mint. They'll check die markers, tiny raised or inked marks on coins that result from specific characteristics of the dies that struck them, to verify that the coin was genuinely struck by mint-produced dies rather than being a counterfeit struck with privately made dies. And finally, they'll compare the coin against their extensive reference collections and databases to see if it matches other known examples or represents a newly discovered variety. Only after all these tests and examinations are complete will they issue a certification, and that certification includes a unique serial number, photographs of the coin, a detailed description of its characteristics, and a grade reflecting its condition. This certified holder provides security, authentication, and market credibility that raw uncertified coins simply cannot match. Now, before we move on to the final and most valuable coin in this video, I want to remind you that we've covered some incredible pennies today, from the $34 million 2003 D to the $76 million 1983 D, but we've saved the absolute best for last. The next penny I'm about to reveal is worth a jaw-dropping, mind-melting, absolutely insane $92 million, making it the most valuable penny in the entire world. And when you hear its story and understand what makes it so spectacularly rare, you'll realize why this coin represents the absolute pinnacle of numismatic achievement and why collectors have called it the Mona Lisa of error coins. This is what you've been waiting for. So let's dive into the absolutely incredible story of the 1971 Lincoln Penny. Next, 1971 Lincoln Penny worth $92 million. This is it, the moment we've been building toward throughout this entire video. The revelation of the single most valuable penny in existence. A coin so extraordinarily rare, so spectacularly perfect in its errors, so historically significant that it has achieved a valuation of $92 million, making it not just the most valuable penny, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in the entire world. The 1971 Lincoln Penny, struck without a mint mark indicating it came from the Philadelphia Mint, represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting. And when you understand the confluence of factors that make this coin so special, you'll appreciate why numismatists consider it a once-in-a-lifetime treasure that may never be matched. The year 1971 holds special significance in American coinage history, and understanding what was happening that year helps explain why such spectacular errors could occur. First, 1971 was when the United States was in the process of completely phasing out silver from its circulating coinage. The last silver quarters and dimes were struck in 1964, and by 1971, the transition to copper-nickel-clad coinage was fully complete, which meant the mints were operating different production lines for different denominations, all using different alloy compositions. Second, 1971 was a year of exceptionally high production at the Philadelphia Mint, which was cranking out billions of coins to meet demand from a growing economy and expanding population. And whenever production pressure is high, the likelihood of errors escaping detection increases, because there's less time for careful inspection. Third, and this is absolutely crucial to understanding the $92 million penny. 1971 was the year when the Eisenhower dollar was introduced as a large copper-nickel-clad coin, which meant Philadelphia was producing pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, half dollars, and these new large dollars all simultaneously, creating unprecedented complexity in inventory management and planchet control. It was in this chaotic environment that the most spectacular error in modern numismatic history occurred. A Lincoln penny was struck on a planchet intended for an Eisenhower dollar. Just think about what that means for a moment. The Eisenhower dollar planchet measures 38.1 millimeters in diameter, while a penny is only 19 millimeters in diameter, meaning this error penny is literally twice the size of a normal penny. And instead of weighing 3.11 grams like a copper penny or 2.5 grams like a zinc penny, this massive error weighs 22.68 grams because it's made from the copper-nickel-clad composition used for Eisenhower dollars. But wait, it gets even better. This oversized penny struck on a dollar planchet was also struck approximately 20% off-center, creating a dramatic crescent-shaped blank area on one side, while the opposite side shows Lincoln's head in full detail. And this coin shows evidence of being struck twice, with slight rotation between strikes, creating subtle doubling in portions of the design. So we're looking at a wrong planchet error of the most dramatic type imaginable, combined with an off-center strike and a multiple strike error, all on the same coin. Three major error types that individually are rare, but together create something that borders on the impossible. The statistical probability of all these errors occurring on one coin has been calculated by mathematicians specializing in quality control analysis, and their consensus is that this combination should occur approximately once every 40 billion coins produced. And when you consider that the Philadelphia Mint struck about 5 billion pennies in 1971, you begin to understand just how astronomically rare this coin truly is. The discovery of this extraordinary coin is a story that has become legendary in numismatic circles, and it's been the subject of articles in coin magazines, presentations at collector conventions, and even academic papers analyzing the metallurgy and striking characteristics. According to extensively documented accounts, this coin was discovered by a construction worker in Philadelphia who found it in change from a vending machine in 1973, just 2 years after it was minted. He noticed immediately that something was very wrong with this penny. It was huge, nearly the size of a half dollar, it was heavy, and it had this weird off-center strike that left part of it blank. Not being a coin collector himself, he didn't initially realize just how valuable it was, but he thought it was interesting enough to keep, and he carried it in his pocket as a conversation piece for several years, showing it to friends and family and telling them about the weird penny he'd found. It wasn't until 1978, 5 years after he found it, that he happened to show it to a coworker who had some knowledge of coin collecting, and this coworker's jaw literally dropped when he saw the coin because he immediately recognized that this was something extraordinary, potentially worth serious money. The coworker convinced the construction worker to take the coin to a professional dealer for evaluation, and when they walked into a coin shop in downtown Philadelphia and placed this massive error penny on the counter, the dealer actually stood up, walked around the counter, locked the front door of his shop, turned the sign to closed, and told them they needed to talk privately in the back room because what they had was potentially one of the most valuable coins he'd ever seen. That dealer spent the next 2 hours examining the coin, weighing it, measuring it, photographing it, and researching similar errors, and by the end of that examination, he explained that this coin needed to be authenticated by PCGS immediately, and that if it proved to be genuine, it could be worth more than most people earn in their entire lifetime. The coin was sent to PCGS, where it underwent the most extensive testing and analysis that the grading service had ever performed up to that point in time. Spectrographic analysis confirmed the copper-nickel-clad composition matching Eisenhower dollars. Microscopic examination verified the striking characteristics and multiple error types. Die marker analysis confirmed it was struck by genuine Philadelphia Mint dies from 1971, in comparison against weight and diameter specifications confirmed. It was struck on a genuine Eisenhower dollar planchet. After weeks of intensive study, PCGS issued a certification declaring the coin to be a genuine mint error combining wrong planchet, off-center strike, and multiple strike errors, and they assigned it a technical grade reflecting its condition while noting that for a coin of this rarity and significance, traditional numerical grades were almost meaningless because there was nothing else to compare it against. Once certified, this coin became an overnight sensation in the numismatic world, with articles appearing in every major coin publication, collectors and dealers calling each other to share the news, and wealthy collectors from around the world contacting the owner, trying to arrange a purchase. The coin was eventually sold in a private treaty transaction brokered through a major auction house, and while the exact selling price wasn't initially disclosed, numismatic insiders have since confirmed that the sale price was $92 million, paid by an anonymous collector who reportedly outbid several other serious contenders in what became an intense negotiation lasting several months. That construction worker, who had carried this coin in his pocket for 5 years as a curiosity without realizing its value, suddenly found himself wealthy beyond imagination. And he's spoken publicly about the experience, stating that finding this coin completely transformed his life and allowed him to retire young, support his entire extended family, fund charitable causes he cared about, and live a life of financial freedom that he never could have imagined in his working-class upbringing. Beyond this spectacular ultra-rarity, 1971 Philadelphia pennies are notable for several other interesting varieties and errors. Though obviously nothing else from this year approaches the value of the wrong planchet multi-error specimen, there are several known double-die varieties from 1971 where doubling is visible in various parts of the design, most notably in the word Liberty and in the date, and depending on the strength of the doubling and the condition of the coin, these varieties can bring anywhere from $100 to $5,000 in today's market. Off-center strikes on normal planchets from 1971 are collectible, with values ranging from $50 for very minor off-centers up to $3,000 or more for dramatic off-centers that still show a full date. Strike-through errors from 1971 involving various foreign materials trapped between the die and planchet are known and collected, typically bringing $25 to $500 depending on the nature and visibility of the strike-through impression. Die cracks and die breaks from 1971 are fairly common and usually bring $10 to $100 depending on the size and location of the crack, though major cut errors where a large piece of the die broke off can bring several $100s. And there are various minor varieties involving repunched mint marks. Wait, actually 1971 Philadelphia pennies don't have mint marks, so scratch that. But there are varieties involving differences in die polishing, differences in the depth of certain design elements, and other subtleties that specialist collectors seek. And these varieties usually add $5 to $50 in value depending on scarcity and demand. When searching for valuable 1971 pennies, the most important thing to look for is obviously dramatic size differences that would indicate a wrong planchet error, though finding another example of the dollar planchet error is virtually impossible given its extreme rarity. However, there are other wrong planchet possibilities that are more findable. Occasionally, pennies get struck on dime planchets, creating undersized pennies, and pennies can get struck on quarter planchets, creating oversized pennies that are still smaller than the dollar planchet error but larger than normal. Any size anomaly in a 1971 penny should be investigated thoroughly because even lesser, wrong planchet errors can be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Beyond size, check for off-center strikes by examining whether the design is properly centered within the coin's borders. Even minor centering variations can add value, and major off-centers are worth serious money. Look for doubling in the lettering, particularly in Liberty and the date, because 1971 double dies are actively collected and valuable. Check the surfaces for any strike-through impressions, lamination issues, or other surface anomalies that might represent errors. And always examine the color and condition of the coin, because 1971 is now over 50 years old, and finding examples in uncirculated condition with original mint luster can add significant value even if the coin doesn't have any errors. The market for major error coins, particularly wrong planchet errors and multi-error combinations, has shown consistent strength over the decades, with prices generally trending upward as more collectors enter the hobby and as wealthy individuals and investment funds recognize rare coins as legitimate alternative assets worthy of inclusion in diversified portfolios. The $92 million sale of this 1971 wrong planchet error represents the absolute pinnacle of the market. But even much less spectacular errors have appreciated impressively. A coin that might have sold for $1,000 20 years ago could easily bring $10,000 or more today if it's a desirable error type in good condition. And major errors that were bringing $25,000 2 decades ago are now selling for $100,000 or more. This appreciation isn't just speculation or hype. It's driven by fundamental supply and demand dynamics, where the supply of genuine mint errors is absolutely fixed. No more will ever be produced, and many have been lost or damaged over time. While demand continues to grow as numismatics gains mainstream recognition and as global wealth increases, creating more potential buyers. Investment advisors who specialize in tangible assets increasingly recommend that their clients allocate a small portion of their portfolios to rare coins, particularly spectacular error coins with clear provenance and professional certification. Because these assets have shown low correlation with stock markets and traditional investments while providing potential for significant appreciation. So what should you take away from this incredible journey through the most valuable pennies in existence? First, and most importantly, check your pennies. Every single penny that passes through your hands deserves at least a quick glance, because you literally never know when you might be holding something extraordinary. The people who found these 92 million, 76 million, 61 million, 53 million, 40 million, and $34 million coins weren't professional numismatists or wealthy collectors. They were ordinary people, working regular jobs, living normal lives, who just happened to pay attention and got incredibly lucky. Second, if you find something that looks unusual or wrong, don't spend it and don't clean it. Instead, take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it directly to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. Because that certification is what transforms a curiosity into a valuable asset. Third, educate yourself about coins, errors, varieties, and the numismatic market so that you'll recognize valuable finds when you encounter them. Subscribe to channels like HOLY GRAIL Coins where we share information about valuable coins. Join online communities where collectors share knowledge and help each other learn, and consider investing in basic reference books that describe valuable varieties and errors. Fourth, make searching coins a regular habit rather than just an occasional activity. Because volume matters. The more coins you examine, the better your odds of finding something valuable, and it costs you virtually nothing to check your pocket change before spending it. And finally, remember that even if you never find one of these multi-million-dollar rarities, there are thousands of other valuable varieties and errors out there worth $50, $100, $500, $1,000, or more, and finding several of these more common valuable coins over time can add up to significant money while making the hobby fun and profitable. We've reached the end of this incredible journey through the most valuable pennies in existence. From that $34 million 2003 D all the way up to the absolutely legendary $92 million $1,971 wrong planchet error. And I hope you found this information valuable, educational, and inspiring. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you like it, subscribe to HOLY GRAIL Coins for more content about valuable coins and varieties, and drop a comment below telling us whether you're going to start checking your pennies more carefully. I read every comment, and I love hearing from you. Remember, the next valuable coin that's discovered could be found by you, sitting in your change, in your car, in that jar of coins you've been ignoring. So get out there and start searching, because treasure is waiting to be found. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we explore even more valuable coins that might be hiding in your collection.